Hello and welcome to Giants Spotlight. Thank you for listening wherever you get your podcast. Today we will talk about the Giants. They are fighting and scratching for a wild card spot as they head into Arizona to play the D-backs. Can the Kenergy get them into the playoffs? That's what we're going to be discussing today. But for a brief notice, I'm going to let you know that I have been sick, and that is why we haven't had podcasts. I ended up getting COVID, and, that kind of derailed a lot of things. We were expected to have a YouTube segment of the podcast out on our YouTube channel, which ended up not happening, and we have the YouTube channel up right now, but as of today, we won't be able to get a video version of the podcast on the YouTube, but we are working on that right now, and eventually we will have it. But today, the YouTube will have this podcast published on the channel, so if you want to go and listen to it off of YouTube, you can, but you won't see any video or footage, which sucks because this is one that I really wanted video on, especially considering that there are Ken photos, and I'm talking Ken from the Barbie movie. The boys, they dressed up as Ken. A lot of the rookies, they ended up dressing up as Ken, going into the road trip to go to Arizona in hopes that this Kenergy will get them into the playoffs, and I think that would be really fun to show, but of course, life happens, and that is why we haven't had a podcast, because I've been sick and I've been coughing a lot. So recordings have been very, very hard to come by, and now we are back. We are at full strength, and this is us coming back. So let's talk about it, because there's been a crap ton of stuff that has happened since then. And speaking of crap, my dog crapped in my room before this, so now this is even more delayed than it already should have been. And who knows, maybe he's a Dodger fan, and I think that's why he did that to my room. But anyways, I digress. We're going to get back into it because so much has happened. And I mean, they've been into the playoffs, they've been out of the playoffs, they've been in the wild card spot, they've been out. It has been a wild ride. And, they put together some wins, followed up by a bunch of losses. So where are they at? What's going to happen? And I'll tell you what's going to happen is this team is going to need to step up if they're going to make it in the playoffs. They are not going to go anywhere if they are going to play like they have been. And, they had a good series against Cleveland in San Francisco where they won 2 of the 3, and they go into the Colorado series where they historically, for the past few years, have been really good at Coors Field and against the Rockies, and come in and just get whooped the first 2 games. I don't know what happened, but it was not like the Giants to be doing that. And they dropped the first 2 games. The first one, they lost 2-3. It was a pretty close one. Duvall earned the loss, and Duvall has had a tough time as of recently, and he's been not himself, but of course, people adjust, and you got to adjust back. So I believe Duvall is going to adjust back and be able to come back and be that closer and, in that role that we need him to be in, especially if we're coming into these close games and we're going to be playing teams like the Diamondbacks who are also in wild card position, like playoff position. You need a guy who's going to be locked down coming out of the bullpen when you're going to have offenses who aren't going to relent. They are not going to did I say that right? I don't even know. But they're not going to give up, and they are not going to let out of the game so easily if they want to make the playoffs. And that's what we're coming down to here, because we have around a week and a half, 2 weeks of baseball left where these games are really deciding. Dodgers have taken the division yet again, so that doesn't mean much considering they get into the playoffs and they kind of sell it in the first round anyways. But what's important is, can the Giants even make it to the playoffs in the first place? For a while they had the top wild card spot and ended up falling out. And I think something important to bring up is that their road stats have been awful. And they have gone on the road, and the splits between win and losses on the road has just been horrid to look at. I will have to pull it up right now. But, oh my gosh, it's been just dire. So I'm going to be honest. On the road, they have 33 wins and 42 losses. But as of, I think in the past 20 road games, I can't think. Maybe I can pull it up right here. Okay, I found it. So in the past road games, this is where it just gets sad to look at, because, at least by month, you have August where they went 12-15. You have July where they went 12-13, and June where they went 18-8. So that's kind of where it boosted them up. And since then, they have not had a winning record above 500 in these past months. And September has been no different. They are 6-10 as of right now. And it is tough to see, because for a team that has the ability to make it to the playoffs, for a team that is so confident, for a front office, for Farhan Zaidi to be so confident in the Giants roster that he thinks they can make it to the playoffs, it's sure not looking like we can make it to the playoffs. And that's as of right now. And that's being completely honest. I mean, you still have Kapler in the position of general manager, or manager, I think, right now, because I think Patilla is the general manager. That's a bit different. But you have people like Kapler who are in a managerial spot. And I don't really criticize Kapler too often. I think he gets over-criticized by the San Francisco fan base. But I will admit, he has not been proving a lot of great things as of recently. And, I mean, I'm just going to point something out right here because this should not have happened. The Giants in the last game against the Rockies that they won, by the way, were winning 11-6 at one point. And they were winning 11-6, and they won the game 11-10. They won the game 11-10. That is insane. I mean, 4 runs in the bottom of the ninth, and I'm going to be honest, like 4 of those runs were given up by Duvall. So those are the runs that he gave up, 1 earned run overall, but those 4 other runs got tacked on. And I think to mention is that, I mean, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to speak because Kapler has just ruined my speech. But Kapler has been in control of the bullpen. And you know what? Manaea pitched an all right game. He gave up 3 runs, and he pitched around 5 innings. He didn't do too bad. Okay, he had an all right game, and the Giants offense really picked him up because up until that point, they were winning, I think, around into the 5th inning, let me think. Yeah, but the 5th inning, or no, because they took him out in the 6th. Okay, hold up. 6th inning is when they took him out, and that's when he gave up, I think, he gave up 3 runs. I think he gave up a 3-run homer, but the Giants were winning 9-0 at that point, 9-0. And the fact that it was 9-0 and it ended up being 11-10 is something you do not want to see for your team. And that shows that there might be a problem with the way the bullpen has been managed. And I mean, Kapler comes out here and he makes these decisions. He ultimately gets the say-so when it's time to bring someone in to take someone out. And what we are seeing from that right now is not great things because you have Manaea who was in, he gave up 3 runs. And throughout the rest of the time that he had been putting in relievers, it ended up adding up to 10 runs overall. And you're trying to play the matchups, and I can see what he's doing is he's trying to play the matchups. He'll put a lefty on a lefty because, that left-handed batter has worse average and split numbers against left-handed pitchers. And yeah, I get the number game. I completely get it because the number game can work. And that is why this Giants team, it kind of is built off of the number game. You have a bunch of platoon batters that go in situations to play in a certain spot to go against a certain, batter. It's just how it is. Or to go against a certain pitcher to get you more runs. It's just what they're going to do. And that's what the Giants team has done. It's the philosophy. It is what Farhan Zaidi has created as a team. And he's given us some more everyday starters. But overall, it's the same way when it goes to the bullpen. And sometimes that doesn't work. And right now, we're saying that didn't work. And I can defend Kapler all I want. I usually defend Kapler, and I usually can support some of the decisions he makes. I know it's a numbers game, and I know it's more new school, at least what the Giants are trying to do. And sometimes that doesn't always work. But as of recently, when you're in tight games like this, and you are trying to play these numbers games, and you're willing to take someone out who might be doing good just to get the matchup you want, and that matchup doesn't work, you have to take that into account going into a future game, because if you make the same mistake that you did earlier, you're going to end up costing a game and another win, which is eventually going to kick you out of the playoffs. It's just going to happen. And the Giants offense, they have been all over the place, but as of recently, in the past, I think about 3 series, they have been able to score some decent runs for the team. They've been able to bring together and string some hits together, string some runs. I mean, in the game against the Rockies, I think they had 8 hits altogether in the 6th inning. They scored 8 runs in that 1 inning, and they were really able to pull through with some clutch at-bats. Speaking of that, you cannot use that. I mean, you have cushion. You have a ton of cushion, which is why the Giants won the game in the first place. But now you also have to talk about the fact that you had that much cushion and you let up that much room. You let up 10 runs, which ended up being a one-run game when it should have not been a one-run game. It just shouldn't. I'm being more aggressive because I'm excited to be back and to be talking and to be giving my analysis as a Giants fan to you. Because I think a lot of Giants fans are really frustrated with the way things are being handled as of right now. Farhan is making some really questionable, crappy decisions, which ends up leading to this cushion being shrunken. It's like 11. I just can't even. It's hard to fathom because, I've seen some blown games. And although they won, it doesn't feel like a win when you come out of the game after being up 11-6 and it's 11-10. It doesn't feel like a win. But, maybe the Giants can sneak into the playoffs. And maybe if they get into the playoffs, maybe they have a string of really good luck or they get really hot and they take it all the way to the World Series. You never know. You've seen I've seen some of the most terrible teams end up making it into the wild card and they go from the wild card to the World Series. I would have never expected the Phillies to go to the World Series last year. Would any of you? I don't think so because you were probably writing up the Dodgers or the Braves to go to the World Series and guess what? They got kicked out first round. So here the Giants are, in an ability, in a system that it feels like favors these wild card teams, and they got to capitalize on that. It is important that they make the playoffs, especially considering Farhan Zaidi's future. Farhan came into the organization, has changed things up. 2021 was great. 2022 was very average. 2020 is overlooked because it was a losing record, but the Giants' offense had been so much better, and that was during the time that they had Donnie Ecker, which led them into that 2021 season that was just magical, and they did everything right. And now you go into 2022, where it is an average season. You go literally 500, the first time the franchise has ever gone 500 in the history of the Giants. And now you're going into 2023, where you're expected to build off of that. You are expected to go above the 500 threshold. And right now, they're 2 games above that. And if you want to make it into the playoffs, you're going to have to be more than 2 games above that threshold. So we're all looking at Farhan because Farhan is the one who put the team together, and he's the one who has said in press conferences, and this has been repeated over and over again because they question, they're always like, will Gabe Kapler remain with the Giants? Will he stay as a Giants manager? And he always says that, yes, he's going to stay as a Giants manager because we're a package deal. He chooses Kapler because Kapler runs the system the way Farhan wants it to be run. And Farhan's system has worked in the past. Right now it's not working. So what needs to be changed? Because it doesn't seem to be giving the same results that it did with the Dodgers. And you have a lot of issues. You have people going in and pitching who are giving up the game. You have an offense that has been sporadic throughout the year, except for a series of stretches where they have been really good. And you have to look and reflect, and you have to think, is Farhan Zaidi the guy that's going to help this Giants team to go all the way? Because that's what we want. That's what we want as a franchise. We deserve that as a franchise. The Giants are a rich historical franchise, one of the richest historical franchises in the history of the game, and I think they have the second most amount of Hall of Famers, if not the most, I'm not sure. And they've had some of the best players to ever play the game of baseball in San Francisco, in New York. And we want Giants baseball. We want a winning team. We want a winning record. We want playoffs year after year, like the Dodgers and the Astros and those types of teams are able to do, and the Braves. All of those teams are able to do. So you have to look and think, is Farhan the guy for this team? Is he the guy who's going to lead us? And I've had some questions about that recently because I think he is possibly the guy. As you can notice, this Giant spotlight is all over the place, and there's not much of a set agenda. Usually we have a list of topics, and we end up talking about them. But today, I feel like as coming back and talking again and giving you guys podcasts again, I feel like it's my time to just do whatever the heck I want. And this is what I'm going to choose to do with it because right now, I'm a little bit frustrated with the Giants, and it's kind of hard to watch. And I think a lot of Giants fans would agree because you watch a team, and you watch your team go up and down and up and down. You don't know whether they're going to make it. And do you think they can make it? I don't know. I don't know if they can. I think that if they get hot, they can definitely sneak into the postseason as the third wild card spot. And that wild card spot really is up in the air. Okay, it is. It's not like it's set to one team or not. I'm going to look at it right now, but it's not set to one team. Everyone knows this because it's been just a crazy wild ride. It's called the wild card, and it is wild because we're 2 games back from the wild card. The Cubs are in the last place spot, but that's fluctuated because they were just in the second place spot, and Arizona was kicked out of the playoffs. You never know. So with this Giants team, if they're able to pick up these wins in Arizona as they're heading into Arizona, if the Ken outfits from the Rockies are going to propel the team to make it to the playoffs, then so be it. But you need to win these games in Arizona. You need to have a decent series against the Dodgers, which is asking a lot because the Dodgers are a dominating force like they always are. They just always are. It just feels like they never lose. But you're going to go against a really hard Dodgers team, and you have games after that aren't going to be so easy. So you have to be able to get the wins when they count. You have to be able to take those teams that you should beat and get those wins to propel you into a spot that's going to help you and your team out. I do think that this team has the potential to make it to the playoffs. I've said that a million times. But that requires them to be hitting. That requires the offense to be on and not just completely shut out. It requires the pitching staff, and it requires Gabe Kapler to make the right decisions and to not play the matchups so much, which end up costing you the game when you throw in somebody who's going to give it up. It requires you to take out pitchers who have already given up 5 runs. You probably to take them out of the game earlier because you can't risk those big gaps when you don't know whether the offense is going to be able to kick back. If you have a starter in who gives up 5 runs, you can't leave him in to give up those 5 runs because are the Giants' offense going to be able to produce back? You don't know. I know you want to save your bullpen, but at this point, you're not saving your bullpen because now there's so much because you're still having bullpen games. So, what does it even matter in the first place? I think what the main thing is, though, the main takeaway overall is that the Giants can make it. There are players who have the ability to do really well and to hit really well, and they totally can. So, what's going to have to happen is they're going to need to get hot, and they're going to need to get hot right now because I'm telling you, if they don't do that, they're going to find their way out of the wild card so fast, and all these other teams are going to be in the wild card again. The Giants will not be in the playoffs for the 2nd year in a row, which is going to be tough, and that's going to have come into question. Is Farhan the guy? Is Gabe Kapler the guy that we should be trusting with our team to lead us to these postseason games and postseason victories? That is all for Giant Spotlight today. Thank you for listening wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.